Okay, I'm going to do this off the cuff. So there's no script or nothing. This is a TOAKS pot set nested together. And it weighs in at 1.1 pounds, okay? This is stuff I need for the pot, which brings it up to 2.6 pounds. This is a measuring cup, which brings it up to 210. 2 pounds, 10 ounces is what that brings it up to. But why do I need all this stuff? Well, there's a reason for my madness with this. Now, a lot of people say, oh, that's with too much weight. It depends what you're trying to do. Okay, if you're running freeze-dried food and all you need is 2 cups of water, you dump in the bag, you mix it up, you put it in a cozy, you can probably get away with something that's way under a pound. If that's all you're going to eat is freeze-dried food. Now, this is a 1600 is what this is. And it comes with a small frying pan and a big lid. So you can do both, right? So that works out pretty nice. And this complete set is all TOAKS. So why do you need a 1600 liter? Well, look at this stuff. That is a can of raviolis. That's a big can, okay? That's a can of beans. That's a big can. Lots of room around my beans. I could open this can up, dump it in that 1600, and warm it up. This would kind of be pushing it. I'd probably have to do this in 2 segments, is what I'd have to do. So, let's say you want to go camping for a day or two and carry your backpack out. And you want some real food. You don't want freeze-dried food, right? So let's say I want some raviolis. Well, just that alone is going to be 2.1 pounds. You're going to be carrying some weight. You know, let's say it's the beans. Well, 1 pound one. So you're going to carry some weight either way. Now, once you eat it, well, that weight's gone, right? And we're not talking about putting a backpack on, walking 30 miles in. We're not doing that. We're going in just to enjoy ourselves. So you might walk a mile and go in. It all depends on what you're doing. And that's what it is. If you're trying to be a guy that's saving weight like crazy, well, you're probably going to try and run that freeze-dried stuff. So it all depends what you're trying to do. Now, this particular set has changed a couple times with me. And I was kind of worried about it. But so I picked this up, which is a 750, and it came in today. And ChatGPT, the AI, told me this would fit in this. They did. They told me that. And this is a 550. So look at this. It will not fit in there. The AI was wrong. It won't even go the other way. Basically, these are both the same pot, but one shorter than the other. You're better off to buy the 750. So that was interesting. So why did I want this one? Well, it holds a good cup of coffee. Now this is the 450. So you can go 1100, 750, 450. Or go from beginning to end, 1600, 1100, 750, 450. But when you add the 450, well, now you got less room in there, right? Is what you got. Now, inside the 1100, I have, okay, if I can get this out. I have 2 windbreakers. Is what I have. And the windbreakers are from silver and titanium. So, They go right inside the 1100. And they fit in there really nice. See that? So when I take a regular washcloth and I put it around this and then slide it in, there's no clanging, no nothing. So, and plus I have this for cleaning, right? Now, inside this pot, I got a pot grabber. Okay, this is what I got. This is an Evernew titanium alcohol stove with a plastic shot glass inside. These are stands. I've got 2 of them. Okay, here's what they are. These actually clip onto the windscreen. We have a spoon. We have a fork. This is a different pot stand. Okay, so to give you an idea, this one goes on there like that. And notice it does not fit on this whatsoever. But if I go this way, I could use it that way. Is what I could do. If I want something a little bit higher. But this is actually made for it. I might take the other one out and just run this one. Okay. So it's got some nice height to it. And then in here, I have yet another Evernew alcohol stove. This is a silicone with a little tiny pour nozzle there. You see that? So why have that when I have this? When you fill this with alcohol, which is 1 ounce, 30 milliliters is 1 ounce, and you go to pour it, sometimes it spills. Where this one has that little thing for pouring on the end, and you can fill that with your 1 ounce and then pour. Now this is made out of silicone, so I can crush it and do anything I want to it. Where this one's hard plastic, you could very well break it. And I tend to follow that rule. You know, 1 is none, 2 is 1. So, and I try not to carry any extra weight doing it. So, and these Evernew titanium stoves are so light, it's ridiculous. Like one of these stoves, I mean, if you really want to know, 1.3 ounces. They weigh practically nothing. So, and the shot glass does fit inside. So that's kind of nice. So, and that's what I use to measure my alcohol with. Inside here, there's a thing called hot lips. These are really great because you add them here. And then, for example, you're right-handed, left-handed. It just snaps on. And then go ahead and drink. And you don't get hot. Because titanium gets really hot. So, why have 2 Evernew titanium stoves? Well, let's say, for example, okay, let me get back to that. In this, I got a grabber. That's for cleaning. Spatula. A snuffer. I got 2 of these in case you run out of alcohol. And that's for tea. And that's all that's in there. And a lighter. So this would go in here if you're having tea. Okay. And you leave the chain hang out. And now, you got some tea. I have another thing coming in that uses for coffee. When that comes in, I'll show you that. It looks like it's going to take a week to get here. So let me come back to why I got 2 of these stoves. So let's say, for example, I'm running this stove here. I got the 1100 on it. And wrong lid. And I got this there, okay? This is going to sit there and simmer my rice, is what this does. And that takes time if I'm cooking rice. All right? So while this pot is tied up for like almost a good 20 minutes, I got this sitting over here. So now this could be over here and it would run this, because now I want to go full blast, okay, with the windscreen around it if I use it. And basically that'll heat up my water. When you heat up rice, you put this right down on top of it, okay? That way you get a simmer. When it's up, we're roaring and we're boiling, basically, is what we're doing. I don't know why that's kind of messing up. But normally, you set this up with your windscreen, and these actually clip on the windscreen, so they don't get all floppy. So in other words, I could be cooking my rice, drinking some coffee or tea while I'm kicking back. Now, that's a lot of, ravioli, and that's a lot of beans. Well, there's no way it's going to fit in that little pot, right? You're not going to put all that in there. You're not going to put all that in there. So, again, if you want to have like a big can of beans, you're going to need 1,600. And then you're going to put it in there. So now, let's say we're cooking our beans and simmering them, right? Then we're cooking our beans in this one, our rice, and simmering it over there. So now you got 2 pots going. So you kind of need a 3-pot set if you want to make some decent meals. And a frying pan. So with all this together, most people are not going to carry that unless they want, to cook regular meals, is what they're going to do. Now you could just take this to 1,600. Okay, cook your rice in it, dump it in something, and then cook your beans. But by the time you get to eat your rice, it's cold. I like to eat my food when it's hot and all together. I don't like to wait. So this is very important. Now, originally, I used to run this, which is the 550. And then when I noticed the 750 fit into the 1100, well, it just made sense to go with that, because look, it sits higher. So you can get more tea or more coffee in there, but, or not fill it as high, and it's not going to spill when you're moving it around. But it just made more sense. And this fits in the 1100, but it's tight. It barely fits. It's tight. Nice thing about titanium is because it's so light. That is the biggest plus out of all of them. I did pick up this, which I was really surprised. Now, you could pre-measure your rice and everything if you wanted. And then just dump it in, right, or whatever you're taking. But I went on the idea of, I just want to throw some rice in a bag. Because normally, I'm going to run half a cup of rice and 3/4 cups of water. And as you can see, that has our measurements there. This thing's awesome. I'll have a link to it. It's awesome. You're not going to break that. It's got the spout on the end. You can see the measurements really clear, even if you're half blind like me. But there's one problem with this. One problem. Okay? 3.6 ounces. This is heavy. I can even feel it. It's heavy. But I think it's pretty much the best I'm going to get, is what that is. So having a measuring cup allows me to broaden what I'm going to cook, because I can do a lot of stuff then. So that was a must, is what it was. Now, I do have another thing coming in. It's going to take like 3 weeks to get here. And you see, with the Evernew stoves, normally you would set this on top and cut off that top flame And now you can simmer. And I'll usually set it on top. And, well, my general rule of thumb is clean the rice, soak the rice for about 30 minutes. Drop the rice in with the amount of water, 3/4 cup, half a cup of rice. Drop it on the top, let it simmer. Tell Siri to count down to 8.5 minutes. And then by then it just starts to boil, and then take it off and set it to the side for 5 minutes. That's perfect rice every time. But all that time's going on. This thing that I have on order that's coming from Japan is designed where it sets right inside the stove. And then it has a very, very low flame. And you could put like 20 milliliters, just under an ounce of alcohol. And then this will actually sit on your pot stand now with your windscreen around it and simmer for like 20 minutes. I'm going to have to try it and see what's the best for that. So it's kind of like another stove, but it's a simmering stove. You know, wherever new titanium stoves, I mean, they heat hard and fast. And you'll burn the bottom of pots, pans, whatever you got if you're not careful. You got to be really careful when you use this and do a lot of stirring. Like, for example, if I was to put, that'll probably fit, but it'd be tight. Inside the 1600, you may want to add some water to this. And then you may go hot and heavy at first, right? So you'd have it up here going hot and heavy, and you keep stirring it. And, you know, taste it and see if it's warm, cold, or whatever. And when it starts to warm up, when it gets to that point where it's warm, you're going to go right down on top of the simmer. And then let it kind of slowly warm up, so that way you're not burning the bottom. Same thing with bush beans. You might want to add some water to that. And I would much rather, okay, like I'm not going to hike the Appalachian Trail. I'm not going to go out there and live there for a week. I'm going out to enjoy myself. So what I do is I take this elaborate cooking kitchen, is what I call it, and I can pretty much cook and do anything. And that's very important. I wouldn't have to take this if I didn't want to, you know, which allows me to pick up anything, but I do. If something gets out of hand, you know, and it kind of falls off like that, then I can grab it and I can pick that up, move that anywhere I want, put it back, you know. Do that with a titanium plate and turn it into a frying pan. You have a lot of versatility for what I'm doing here, from a spatula to a knife to a fork. This is a must when it comes to the titanium. You need a heck of a scrubber. You'll notice I don't have a sponge. Nothing like that. Sponges are actually not healthy for you. They contain bacteria, and there's nothing healthy about it. You shouldn't even have a sponge on your sink in the kitchen. So, word to the wise. But you'll find, to me, the best setup from what I've seen, you know, on what I have, is to have 1600. But the way this all works, okay, so you figure this is what we got, right? So how this goes together, very simply, that is my 750. Take the hot lips off, throw them in there. This has to go around at the bottom like this. And it has to go on pretty tight. Because remember, inside the 1100, we've got the windscreens, right? For the titanium stove. So that is going to go in there like so. And then, and it's very important that this doesn't come up. If that comes up, you're not going to get the lid on it. And there we go. You see? Now that's in there super tight. So 1100 to 750. And you'll see that's pretty high. You see that there? That is pretty high. So then you start putting whatever you want inside. Now normally I've got two of those. And these are okay. So these are our pot stands. They go up against the side, and I lay them sideways. Then, okay, one of my stoves goes in, and that's going to hold that from basically falling over and creating a mess, is what that's going to do. Silicone shot glass goes inside the other one, and then that goes inside. Our spoon, our fork, our pot grabber, and I think that's about it that I'm going to get in there. See that? So then that gives me that look, because this other stuff was in the other bag. So now, this goes on there. This goes on the 750 that just came in. So you see that? This goes on the 1100. And then we stop there. So then we worry about putting this. Is it this one? This one? Yeah. No, this one. So this goes on the 1100 with the 750 inside, with the other stuff inside. Like so. Then we zip it up. Now you can stop there, okay? And sometimes I'll put elastics around them just to give them a little extra bracing. But you could stop there if you wanted to. You really don't need the elastics. So you could run the 1100 with the 750 and then stop. And that allows you for a two-pot system. No frying pan. But if you want to step it up, you can go to 1600 and it goes right in there. See that? There's even some room off the side. I don't know if I could. Yeah, I could barely get that in there. Is what I can do. So the spatula will go in there. I'm not sure what else. I might be able to put a lighter in there. Yeah, I guess that's it right there. So then, you notice how this is sticking up? Well, this comes with, the 1600 comes with a little frying pan. Okay? And it comes with this lid. I think I bought the lid separately. I can't remember. But you can buy the lid if it doesn't. The frying pan goes on top. And there you go. So now you got a complete setup. The lid actually goes in the 1600 bag. And then this goes on top of the lid. Is what that does. So all that comes up. Tighten this down. Give it a reef. And there we go. We got a complete setup there. Now, like I said, this total weight of that package is 1 pound, 14 ounces. Almost 2 pounds is what it is. But you're running a 3-pot setup with a small frying pan, so you could fry some eggs or a little tiny stir fry. And you could cook now Chef Boyardee's. You could cook beans, whatever you want. And that is very important to me. Very important. Because, I mean, if I'm hiking and I come across a grocery store or something, I can always just pop in or a corner store and pick up a little bit of supplies and then come out. That's kind of nice, you know, because when you're actually moving around, I mean, you'll come across a gas station, you'll come across a corner store or something like that. They're not going to carry freeze-dried meal unless it's off the Appalachian Trail and they're used to that. So now you're quite limited if you run out of supplies, right? But if you carry a pot set like that weighs almost 2 pounds, well, there's no limit in what you can do. You can cook anything and everything that you want to cook. And this entire thing is a complete TOAKS setup. So you can drink coffee, you can drink tea. Now, I do run another totes bag where I add little things like these in case I run out of alcohol. My little grabber, you know, this is a snuffer if I want to snuff out the stoves. This makes tea. So really, now I do have a coffee thing going in there shortly when it comes in. So everything's in that bag. So I'm kind of color coordinated with orange. You can buy these bags separate too off TOAKS website. But not sponsored, not at all. All this stuff about my own money. So, and trying to get the right nesting and everything perfectly is kind of nice. I do have a stainless steel frying pan that I take sometimes, which is better than cooking on titanium. But it all depends, you know, how I feel and what I'm doing is what it is. So this is kind of a compact setup. It allows me to run two Evernew titanium stoves, and it gives me a lot of versatility. When that other gadget comes in from Japan, I'll do some tests, and is that I've always ran it this way, but I may have some changes coming soon that may just change this. And like I said, the reason for this is you're not going to cook that inside a little cup that takes 2 cups of water. You know, for people that say, "Oh, my cup set's only X amount of ounces." Well, they're not eating that. I'll tell you that right now. It's all freeze-dried food at $10 a crack, and you figure you eat 2 of those a day, that's $20. It gets pretty expensive when it comes out to food. But if you carry a decent pot set that weighs just under 2 pounds, well, now you can cook anything. So now you're not stuck with freeze-dried food. And if you happen to come across a corner store or gas station, there's always something in there, a can of soup or something you can actually cook. So sorry for the long video, but if anybody's into this, they'll probably watch the whole video. Most people won't because they're not into this. But we're running 1600 TOAKS with 1100 TOAKS with a 750 that barely fits TOAKS. And everything goes inside the 750. And the 1600 has a frying pan, which I thought I bought the lid separately. And it's under 2 pounds. So that's an interesting setup right there. Catch you guys on the next one.